Good evening. My name is Chris Ryder. I'm Chief of Staff to Mayor Ted Betancourt. The mayor had hoped to be here tonight. It didn't work out schedule-wise. He's traveling with his family, and they're on their way to Disney World. He very much hates to miss this event. It's one of his favorite of the year. He participated in student government, as did many of us in city government. So he sends his best wishes for a great night tonight, and it is going to be a great night. So on behalf of Mayor Betancourt, I want to welcome the parents, family, friends to Student Government Day 2018. And I have the great honor and distinction to welcome our mayor, Janine Goggin.
I'd like to invite the police chief and fire chief to lead the flag salute and pledge of allegiance.
If you could remain standing for our national anthem, performed tonight by the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School Chorale under the directions of Mr. John Simmons. I'd like to invite Pastor Holly Trewern to lead the invocation.
Thank you. Dear God, thank you for this day, and thank you for the students in this room. Thank you for blessing the city of Peabody with current and future leaders. Fill them with wisdom, patience, creativity, determination, courage, and peace. Bless the life of each person here tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Please be seated. It gives me great pleasure to once again introduce the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School Chorale under the direction of John Simmons.
this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Herbert Levine, Superintendent of Schools, to say a few words.
How about these kids? On the way up to the podium, I was told two things. Keep it short, it's very hard for me, and don't forget to introduce Eric Buckley when you're done. So Eric, consider yourself introduced as soon as I'm done. I've been in this business 49 years, and this will be my last. I will tell you that in the 49 years that I've been in this business as an educator, always at the top of the list of the things that I've enjoyed is being around kids. They are the best, and Peabody's right at the top of that list. I've spent 4 years in Peabody as superintendent, and I have been absolutely encouraged about what our life is going to look like 10 years from now and 20 years from now by the kids that are coming out of our public schools in the city of Peabody. They are talented, they are kind, they are decent, they are compassionate, they are passionate, and they will be successful. And they will take care of us when we're old, like me now. So I want to thank the kids for all that they've done for me as an educator, as superintendent. They have made me whole every day. I've enjoyed coming to work every day, and I've enjoyed especially being around them and all of the things that they're doing now and will do in the future. So thank you, Peabody, for enriching my life. Thank you, kids, for enriching my life. And I will now introduce our high school principal, Eric Buckley.
Of course. So I was reminded that to make sure when I'm done to introduce Mr. Mchugh. So, Mr. Mchugh, you've been warned also. So good evening, everybody. It's nice to see everyone here this evening. Just like to take a moment to thank everybody that's been a part of this day, especially Mayor Betancourt, who was here earlier with the kids, the City Hall, and the counterparts that our students were able to shadow throughout the city, throughout the day. It's a great experience. The feedback we had here at lunch and at dinner time was that not only the kids enjoyed it, but a lot of the workers that make this city so great in work on a day-to-day basis really enjoyed the kids. So again, sometimes with the students, I don't know if it's just the break in the routine that we enjoy, but I can tell you, I get to see it on a daily basis with our kids, and it makes me very proud and very happy to be a part of their lives. I would also secondly like to thank the superintendent, Dr. Levine, Ms. Murtagh, and Ken Mchugh, who really put a lot of time and support into this program. It's always been a good program. In fact, before Mr. Mchugh was going to come up and speak, I was going to go over the history of the Student Government Day. So I've been making him sweat, telling him that I'm going to tell them everything, and you're going to come up here and not be able to come up with a thing. But I won't do that to him. We've been friends for a long time. But the one person I really would like to single out is Mary Bellavance. And Mary always, if anyone's had anything to do with City Hall, knows how involved she is in every event in this city and planning it. Not just the event, but pinning on the corsages or whatever it may be. She is really a detailed person, and I know she'll be mad if I say this, but yes, it's been years that we've worked together. And as a high school principal, it's great to be able to call City Hall and have Mary pick up the phone, and whether it's planning an event or there's been a scheduling issue where events overlap, it's always good to have somebody there that can brainstorm with you and make sure that the problem is fixed, and that's Mary. So again, thank you to Mary. As I'm sure students found out today, a lot of our counterparts have actually participated in Student Government Day over the years. I know the mayor's not here, and he always tells the story how he was the Park and Recs director that year, and his wife was the actual mayor. So I get to use that one this year. Also, our school committee and our city council and other workers throughout the city were part of Student Government Day, which was great. And just looking at people like Andrew Arnodis, or Mr. Arnodis now, who's on the school committee. I believe he was a counselor at large, and Ryan Melville was actually the mayor back in 2003, 4, I think it was 3. So again, I know there were other members too, but those, about as far as my memory goes back. Last night we had our National Honor Society induction, and it was a great night, but I did kind of lie. I lost kind of track of what I was saying, and I said, you know, this is kind of the kickoff to the end of the school year. Tonight's actually and today is the actual start of the end, because it's our seniors, and we're going to miss them. You know, someone once told me, kids, they'll drive you crazy 6 days of the week. It's the 7th day that makes it really worth it. And this is the time of year that myself, Mrs. Maniatis, with all the things that go on during the year, we get to see you now different. We get to see how mature you've become, and really look forward to seeing you graduate and do great things, as Dr. Levine says. I feel the same way, and I felt that way for a long time, being a teacher and now the principal. We're in good hands here in this city with the future that we have in our students. So thank you, and I'd like to now introduce Mr. Mchugh, if there's anything left.
I don't have any reminders. I don't have to introduce anybody, so I'm good in that. Okay, I'd like to say thank you to everybody for coming out tonight. I'd like to thank the students, first of all, for putting your names on a ballot. If you remember back all the way in the fall, we had an assembly and we talked about what this day was going to be all about. And you had, you decided what you wanted to run for and put your name out there. And there was competition. And these students that you see here tonight are the ones who won I think we had approximately 65 positions that were represented today. So we started back then in the fall. They had the election, they met their counterparts in January, and tonight what you're going to see is the mock meetings of the school committee, and to be followed by the mock meeting for the city council. The students will propose their original motions they came up with tonight, and they will debate and vote on those. And just a little bit else about what they did today. We came here in the morning and had a little breakfast, and then they went off with the counterpart for the day. And I always tell them in the morning, I think a lot of them don't know what to expect, what they're really going to learn about how the city works. And it was very interesting. Always some good stories. I talked to a few of them today, and they're very excited to tell me about things that they did. You know, some of them going just out with the city council on a tour, school committee, again, going on a tour, and then other people in various positions, interesting things they found out about how many cemeteries there are in the city. There's apparently 51. I didn't know that myself. Some people got to meet McGruff the crime dog today. There was some people went up I believe went up 50 feet in the air in a bucket with the fire department. And people discovered that we have a golf course that the city owns that they didn't know about. Even some it was kind of in their own neighborhood. And then somebody even had the honor of went to the somewhere in the archives at the Peabody Institute Library to actually hold Ben Franklin's walking stick. And I did not know that his walking stick was here in Peabody. So that was a very interesting thing for me to find out as well. So it was a really great experiences all throughout the day, and they all learned a lot. And so as everybody left this morning, and it was probably around 10 o'clock or so, went on their way, and the place was suddenly very quiet. And I was here, and one person walked in. Elderly gentleman came walking in, he went right into the mayor's office. And I said to myself, I think that's Frank Hardy. Frank Hardy is the guy who created this day. He started the first Student Government Day in 1973. And so I went in there and I said, Frank, great to see you again. I guess you're going to be running the program today. And he said, oh, no. He said, no, this is yours now. This has moved on. And he told me a little bit about the history and some things I didn't know. And that was that he had, I don't remember exactly when the year was, but he had passed the torch on to Mr. Buckley at one point. Mr. Buckley ran the program for the years. And then about 10 years ago, he passed that on to me. And it has grown over the years. As Frank said, it started with 5, and then he said around the late 70s, early 80s, it really expanded, and there was a lot of interest. And so that's where we are today. So I'd like to thank everybody once again for coming out, and we're going to have the showcase pieces tonight, and I'll turn it back over to Mayor Goggin.
I'd now like to introduce the students and their counterparts. Animal Control Officer, Mallory LeBlanc and Sharon McGill. Assessor, Shaylin Kelly and Susan Antonellis. Attorney, Chima Okanawa and Michael Smrzinski. Auditor, Victoria Pereira and Mary Martin. Brooksby Farm Manager, Jillian Arrigo and Joanne Roden. Building Inspector, Gabriella Frangillo and Al Tallarico. Business Liaison, Alex D'Angelo and Debbie McGregor. Chemist and Water Supervisor, Nicole Thomas and David Scribner. City Clerk, Joshua Correa and Tim Spanos. The Councilor of Ward 1, Jack McKelvey and John Turco. Jack. Councilor of Ward 2, Ryan Mills and Peter McGinn. Councilor of Ward 3, Micaiah Jones and Jim Matsoulis. Councilor of Ward 4, Molly Staunton and Ed Charist. Councilor of Ward 6, Sarah Benlatmania and Mark O'Neill. Councilor at Large, Callista Koslowski and Tom Rosignol. Councilor at Large, Kayla Connolly and Ryan Melville. Councilor at Large, Katie DuPont and David Gravel. Councilor at Large, Sarah Buckley and Thomas Gould. Collector, Sydney Lowry and Chris Morphus. Community Development Director, Nicole Ruggiero and Kurt Bellavance. Council on Aging Director, Nicole Ferrante and Carolyn Wynn. Electrical Inspector, Victoria Coulard and Sean Mahoney. Nice. Engineer, Noah Friedman and Bob Langley. not here. Facilities Director, Amber Camo and Timothy Healy. Finance Director, John Najjar and Michael Gingras. Health and Human Services Director, Christina Lazensky and Sharon Cameron. Healthy Peabody Collaborative Outreach Coordinator, Emily Nelson and Sandy Drover. Human Resources Director, Victoria Furtado and Beth Brennan O'Donnell. Information Technology Director, Serena Laro and Frank Nguyen. Library Director, Kirsten Crow and Melissa Robinson. Mayor's Administrative Assistant, Deanna Ruggiero and Mary Bellavance. Mayor's Chief of Staff, Heavenly Porcher and Chris Ryder. Mayor's Executive Secretary, Shane Braz and Daryl McCarthy. Parks and Forestry Superintendent, Christian Jones and Brian Grant. Peabody Municipal Light Commission Chairperson, William Alward and Robert Wheatley. Peabody Municipal Light Plant Manager, Charles Kirby and Glenn Triera. Public Health Nurse, Madison Conrad and Chassie Robinson. The Chief of the Fire Department, Cole Cuzzy and Steve Pasden. Fire Inspector, Julia Fader and Chris Dowling. The Chief of the Police Department, Jake Gustin and Tom Griffin. The Police Chief of Detectives, Jack Hamill and Scott Vlasic. The School Resource Officer, Adrian Cafaro and Manny Costa. Secretary to Police Chief, Vinicia Moran and Sharon January McGill. Purchasing Agent, Joseph LeBlanc and Dan Doucette. Recreation, Parks, and Forestry Director, Gabrielle Morton and Jen Davis. School Committee Member, Christopher Bellevue and Joe Amico. School Committee Member, Ryan DeLeva and Brandy Carpenter. School Committee Member Julia Kirby and Beverly Ann Griffin Dunn. School Committee Member Jennifer Puzo and Andrew Arnautis. School Committee Member Isabella Ricciardi and John Olympio. Administrative Assistant to the Superintendent, Michaela Faris and Marge Marcarelli. Administrator of Special Education, Courtney Ball and Ruth Gruby. Assistant Superintendent of Schools, Ava Murata and Kara Murtagh. Assistant to the Superintendent, Human Resources, Maggie Ambeliotis and Charles Charette. Want to take a pic? High School Assistant Principal and Principal, Alyssa Anisi and Ann Manning with Principal Eric Buckley. School Business Manager, Holly Sherman and Jared Stanton. Superintendent of Schools, Eric DeMayo and Dr. Herbert Levine. Treasurer, Andrea Haley and Julia Daigle. And Veterans Service and Homeland Security Director, Stephen L. and Steve Patton. Now will be the start of the school committee meeting. I'd like to call the school committee meeting to order. Are there any school committee members that have any motions they'd like to present?
Hello. So, our motion, renovate the D-House classrooms at Peabody Veterans Memorial High School with specific attention to repairing the floors.
Second. Okay, so I wrote this weird thing, but I'm not going to say it. So I haven't been to Peabody for very long, but I know seeing other people who have grown up in Peabody that the school systems are really great, just growing up, but to say that there's nothing wrong would be a lie. One of the main concerns is D-House classrooms. You walk into the hallway and there's like a trash barrel catching dripping water from the ceiling. And then you walk around the trash barrel and there are floor tiles that I myself have tripped over many times. So, yeah, that's it.
And the floor tiles do pose as a safety hazard to students. Okay. And so that is why we are proposing a renovation for the D-House classroom areas, because it is not safe for students that have classes there.
Are there any other school committee members that would like to speak on behalf of this motion? Mr. Superintendent, would you like to comment?
I believe that that is something that has already been discussed, and I agree that the conditions are not suitable for our students. Budget Director, is that something that is reasonable?
Through the chair, I would like to know how much it will cost.
The Superintendent says that after July 1st we should know that. Budget Director, we would like an estimate from you if you could do that.
We'll let you know after July 1st.
Can the building facilities manager come up and speak?
So I would just like to state, to repair each D-House classroom, it would cost $5,408. Each of the 14 classrooms is 832 square feet, and the total cost to repair all of the classrooms and the common space would be about $92,352.
Can these repairs be done in sequence?
What do you mean by that?
Can the common areas be done first, and then a set of classrooms after that, and then a set of classrooms after that?
Everything could be done independently.
I'd like an amendment to motion to do the common areas immediately after July 1st with the new budget.
Just on behalf of us, we would prefer to have this all done at one time, because taking it one step at a time would take many, many years, where the life expectancy of these classrooms is not very long. As we can see, they're already falling apart.
Would you be willing to amend the motion to reflect the pending budget availability?
Could you repeat the request, please?
Would you amend the budget to reflect the budget being passed July 1st?
We would like the motion to be done right away.
It's just that it's going to take a long time either way, whether we amend it and wait for that, or if we do it one classroom at a time. We're trying to get this done as quick as possible.
Are there any further comments on this motion? Would the person who originated the motion please reread it?
Renovate the D-House classrooms at Peabody Veterans Memorial High School with specific attention to repairing the floors.
Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Mr. Bellevue? Ms. Cordero? Absent. Mr. DeLeva?
Yes.
Ms. Kirby?
Yes.
Ms. Puzo? Yes. Ms. Riccardi?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Are there any other motions from school committee members? I recognize.
Second.
Are there any other members that would like to comment on behalf of this motion?
I think this is a wonderful idea, and I am supporting this motion.
I recognize the superintendent.
Would you like to elaborate on what a bike share program is?
If they need to stay after school, or if they need to go short distance, if their parents can't pick them up or whatnot, they can use a bike share program and get a bike, and they can rent a bike for however much, and it's usually cheaper than a lot of other transportation. and if they keep it overnight, then they could pay the fee or whatnot, but.
I recognize the superintendent.
I think that is a great idea, but I can also think of a lot of potential problems with that. The school will be liable for anything wrong that happens. Helmets would need to be provided because if a child got hurt taking that bike, the school's going to be liable through insurance. If a bike is stolen, the school is liable. During the winter, it's probably not safe for kids to be out in the dark on these bikes. And there's a potential of falling on ice and other issues.
In the bike share program, they will provide their own helmet and they can sign a waiver.
I recognize.
I would like to amend the motion and make it a seasonal bike share program.
Would the person who originated the motion be willing to amend the motion?
I agree on the amendment.
Is there any other further discussion? I recognize the superintendent.
What do you mean by seasonal?
So the bike share program could be implemented within the schools during the fall and the spring, not during the winter when weather conditions are not good for riding a bike outside. And it could reduce injuries and it would be a good plan.
I recognize the superintendent.
I would recommend that a committee of students and school administrators be put together to work out the exact details of the bike share program.
Would the originator of the amendment be willing to add that as well?
I agree to that, and it should go to the Health and Wellness Committee.
If there are no further comments on the motion, I ask for a roll call vote on the motion amended.
Mr. Bellevue?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeva?
Yes.
Ms. Kirby?
Yes.
Ms. Puzo?
Yes.
Ms. Riccardi?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Are there any other motions to come forward? I recognize.
I propose that Peabody Veterans Memorial High School has more classes that are geared towards a student's desired career and life skills needed after high school. These will also help students be more readily prepared for college or higher education. They would help students become more prepared in the fields they would like to work in and give them experience to be ready for the working world.
Second.
I recognize the superintendent.
I support this motion. I think it's a good idea, but I would ask this be sent to the Education Subcommittee to do some research on what types of classes should be offered and what students would be most interested in to help them in the future.
I agree.
I recognize.
I just have a question. How is this going to be any different than some of the technical education classes that we already have, such as culinary arts and cosmetology?
Well, I was just gonna say that it would have more classes that are geared towards a certain major. So yes, I understand there are those classes already at the high school, but for someone like me who's going into like a criminal justice major, like something more like that, like a class that you can maybe like take with like a police officer or something, or someone who is going into education could maybe like take a class like in teaching or something like that.
Are there any other comments on the motion? I recognize.
Could there be a work-study program that can be involved in this?
Through the chair, and yes, that would be something that could be part of it. Like we could implement maybe like an internship program that students could do like before they graduate from high school, so they could get more experience before they go to college or into the working world.
I recognize the superintendent.
These are all fair points, but I would suggest that this be sent to the Education Subcommittee because there are too many details to be worked out right now.
I recognize.
Could we get the perspective from the high school principal on this matter?
So whenever a new class idea is raised, it raises the question, what are we going to give up to implement a class like this? There's only 7 periods in the day, so much time that we have, so many slots open for students to take classes, where we already have classes very focused on career goals. Specifically, if you were going to talk about criminal justice, we have a forensics class, we have You and the Law 1 and 2, and we're looking into starting a student police academy next year. So I was going to ask, in this situation, what you would be willing to give up, if you would be willing to look into a longer school day to provide time for another class, and just what your thoughts were on that.
I recognize the superintendent.
A longer school day would cost a lot of money and would have to be negotiated with the teachers' union.
I recognize.
So I feel like the principal brought up a lot of really good points. They were some of my main concerns. I feel like we have a lot of these classes already, and if we were to add more, I don't necessarily believe that we would need a later exit time. I feel like students are pretty set with picking their own classes. As long as they have their core classes in mind, they can pick the electives they want to, and if that's geared towards their goal in life, then that's fine. But I feel like we already have a very good system set up for electives.
Are there any other comments on the motion? I recognize.
I'd like to amend the motion to Education Subcommittee for further discussion.
Second.
The motion has been amended. We need to vote on that.
Mr. Bellevue?
Yes.
Mr. DeLeva?
Yes.
Ms. Kirby?
Yep. Yes.
Ms. Puzo?
Yes.
Ms. Riccardi?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Are there any other motions to come forward? I recognize the superintendent. Seeing no more motions on the floor, I ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'd like to open the City Council meeting.
Now it's open. Red light.
Ward 1 Councilor.
I propose a motion to remove the left turn arrows on Andover Street where you turn onto Buttonwood Lane. By doing so, the street would become a 2-lane freeway and improve the flow of traffic.
Councilors, you have heard the motion. Would anyone like to speak on it? Councilor Buckley.
I agree with this motion. There's a light about 100, 150 yards up anyway that you can take a left turn into that neighborhood. So I think that it would be a good thing to improve the flow of traffic if it was 2 lanes as opposed to 1, because that area gets very backed up.
Councilor Mills.
Would this motion stop people completely from turning into Buttonwood Lane?
If there were double lines put in, then it would prevent people from turning left. But if we left an opening, they would be able to turn left with proper procedure from the oncoming traffic.
Councilor Buckley.
I'd like to get a recommendation from the police department, please.
Police Chief.
I'm concerned that changing the traffic pattern in that area would create a hazardous situation for those who are trying to take a left-hand turn from Buttonwood Lane to go westbound. That would have to be prohibited, which will cause some concern for the residents in that neighborhood, and they will likely be upset. Additionally, Andover Street is a state road, so we would have to work with the Department of Transportation on this. I would recommend that this be tabled so we can consult with the DOT, get a traffic study, and possibly have a public hearing to get the neighbors' input.
Councilors, you have heard the recommendation. Would anyone like to speak on it? Councilor McKelvey.
Chief, I wholeheartedly agree with you and would like to send a recommendation to Representative Walsh's office. And also, if you do go up Buttonwood and come out through the neighborhood out of Violet Road, you can turn left out of that light.
Okay.
Was there ever a traffic study done where at one point it was 2 lanes and then got decreased to 1 for any reason, or has it always been 1?
We'd have to check with the records that we have at the station.
You said that you wanted to send a letter to Senator Walsh. Would that be a motion?
Yes, I would like to file a motion to propose the removal of the left turn only arrows on Andover Street where you turn onto Buttonwood Lane, and doing so becoming a 2-lane freeway and improving the flow of traffic to Representative Walsh.
We would like a roll call vote.
All right. Councilor Jones.
I agree.
Councilor Buckley.
Yes.
Councilor Mills.
No.
Councilor Bentley-Mania.
Yes.
Councilor DuPont.
No.
Councilor Kislowski.
Yes.
Councilor McKelvey.
Yes.
And Councilor Connolly.
No.
Council President Stoughton.
No.
Motion carries 6-3.
Counselor McKelvey, would you like to put this through the Municipal Safety Subcommittee?
I absolutely would.
Clerk, could you schedule a meeting?
Absolutely.
I would like to open it up to Counselor at Large Mchugh Jones.
I would like to propose a motion to prioritize the testing conditions and administration of the advanced placement testing at PVMHS. This includes relocating the testing area from the bus ramp to either the field house or D house, providing more control over the heat and air conditioning, minimizing distractions from nearby physical education classes and vehicles driving under the bus ramp, and closely following the protocols in administering the tests as outlined by the College Board. The field house would be a less distracting venue for that test to be administered, and there would be more control over the heat and air conditioning in that room. There would also be more control over the heat and air conditioning in D house. In years past, the bus ramp has been very hot during the AP testing, which is distracting and makes testing difficult. In years past, the AP program has experienced issues in proctoring and timing the tests.
Would any counselors like to speak on the matter? Counselor Kozlowski.
With all due respect, I completely agree with the idea, but I feel this would be more of a school committee motion. So I just wanted to get everyone's thoughts on that.
Counselor McKelvey.
I also agree that it should be sent to school committee, but I had a few additional thoughts about the motion. Even putting it in the field house, there is a ventilation system inside there that does make a voluptuous amount of noise, and that would also be distracting, and you would have to put desks in there for the students to be taking the test.
Counselor Mills.
I agree with Counselor McKelvey.
Counselor Jones.
I agree that it might be difficult to move desks into the field house, but would it be possible to move the test into D house where there are already desks?
Thank you, Madam President. I also agree with the motion, but I agree with Counselor Kozlowski that it should be handled by the school committee.
Counselor Buckley.
I would like to ask for a recommendation from Assistant Principal, Ms. Mchugh. Sorry, Assistant Superintendent.
I would recommend bringing this to the Education Subcommittee, allowing for collaboration with City Council and Administration.
Could we hear from the high school principal? And assistant.
Okay, so we are aware that the bus ramp is very distracting and is not an ideal location for AP exams. However, it already is our secondary location for the testing, and very few were held there, but now over the past few years that more APs have been signed up for, such as AP Stats, AP Literature, and AP Biology. Those are very heavy student-wise classes, and very few were held here, but now that we need the capacity, that's where that is where we hold the testing.
Some issues that may arise if we moved the testing to the gym is that the acoustics are very bad for reading directions, so the problems that we already have with proctoring times and things being not properly communicated may actually be worsened if we move it to the gym. D House has AC, but is now being shared with the community school, so the number of classrooms we have in there is much less than before. And about the air conditioning and heating in the gym, there's actually no air conditioning in the gym. There's an air circulator, but as Jack McKelvey already said, that's very loud, which can also be distracting. The desks issue has also been brought up. Not only would it be a problem to bring the desks in, but if we were to do that, we would have to put tennis balls on them because of the new basketball court that's in the gym. So, aside from all these downsides to that, an idea that we could maybe talk about is sending the AP exams off-site. Some schools actually send the AP students when they're taking their exam to another location, like maybe in a conference room that may be available in the industrial park. The Trigian Life Center has large rooms that if they're not using, maybe they would be willing to donate for students to have better testing conditions. So I was wondering what you would think about that idea of moving the tests off the site of the school.
Counselor Jones?
I agree. I think that's a good idea that we could move the tests off-site.
Anyone else? Counselor Connolly?
I just want to add that I agree with Assistant Superintendent Murata and think that this should be sent to school committee at the Subcommittee of Education.
I also believe that it should be put through to the school committee. Because they get a little irritated when we don't, when we put motions through here. Counselor Mills?
I also agree.
Do you agree that they get ticked off, or?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
I'd like to make a motion that we move refer this motion to school committee.
We would like a roll call vote.
In roll call, Councillor Bentlop-Mania.
Yes.
Councillor Mills.
Yes.
Councillor Buckley.
Yes.
Councillor Connolly. Oh, sorry. Councillor Jones.
Yes.
Councillor Connolly.
Yes.
Councillor McKelvey.
Yes.
Councillor Kozlowski.
Yes.
Councillor DuPont.
Yes.
Vote, Councillor Stoughton.
Yes.
Motion carries with 9 to none.
Counselor Connolly?
I would like to propose a motion for the installation of wheelchair swings into various public parks and playgrounds throughout Peabody. Wheelchair swings are platforms that are handicapped and wheelchair accessible, and they function as regular swings on the playground. Wheelchair swings promote social equality on the playground as well as provide motion therapy to many people. As many parks already have wide wheelchair accessible gates, all we would be implementing are the physical swings themselves.
Would anyone like to speak? Councillor Buckley?
I agree with Councillor Connolly. I think that would be a good addition to the parks for the community.
Any other councillors? Councillor Benlap-Mania?
I think this is a great idea. Can we have the Parks and Recreational Committee speak on this?
We are not opposed to this proposal because we like to have our parks inclusive to all children. However, due to the individual cost of each swing, which is $2,400, we believe it's best to slowly integrate the swings into our parks over the course of 5 years, and to begin with the parks that have pre-existing gates that are wheelchair accessible. For this reason, we believe the best option to initiate this project is Cy Tenney Park, located in Ward 5. It is also a highly populated area, so we can gather community feedback, which will allow us to further this project if it's successful.
Councillors, you have heard the recommendation. Would anyone like to speak on it? Councillor Dupont?
Are there any grants out there to help support this purchase?
We would have to research that, but we are sure that we could find them.
Councillor Connolly?
Since the cost is so high of one and we want to implement them slowly, I just want to ask, would it be more efficient to us if we bought in bulk of the swings?
Unfortunately, it depends on the site and the installation price for each site, so to do it one by one would be our best option.
Councillor Dupont?
I would just like to ask, if something happened with these swings, would we have any liability? Or what is the whole situation with that?
Since we don't charge for our parks, we are not responsible and we have no liability.
I would like to call up the city attorney. Was the statement that was just made accurate?
I would like to state that this motion, if enacted, will pose no legal threat to the city of Peabody because according to the recreational use law, no one is allowed to sue for injuries on city properties that are dedicated to recreational use. This law is in place in order to promote the opportunity for the public to use great public and recreational facilities.
Thank you. Any other Councillor Connolly?
I'd like to ask if this would be appropriate use of community preservation money to actually buy the swings themselves.
Absolutely.
Councillors? Councillor McKelvey?
I was wondering if we could apply for a grant to the Mass Commission of Disabilities.
We would like to call up the Parks and Rec Director.
If there is one available, we will.
Councillor Buckley?
I think having the swings just in West Peabody at Cy Tenney is unfair to the kids in Central and South Peabody. I feel like that makes it less available for everyone in the city. So in my opinion, I think that it would be a worthwhile investment to, it'll be about $20,000 to take out of the budget for next year, and I believe that that would be a worthwhile investment to do it all, so everyone can be included in that.
Councilor Mills?
I just have a question for Ms. Morton. Is there room in the fiscal budget to cover even the trial swing?
In this fiscal year, no, but we are still negotiating for 2019. And to Councillor Buckley's point, we could also consider installing a swing in Radin Park, because Radin and Saitani are pilot parks. And then after we do more investigation in other parks to see if they are viable sites, we can consider where to install these swings.
Councillor Connolly?
I completely agree with what Councillor Buckley said, but with, as we just said, with the use of community preservation money, and if we apply for grant money, we think that we'll have a bigger budget, and maybe we'll be able to start off with two, one in South, one in West, and go from there, rather than just starting in West.
Councillor McKelvey?
One more thing to point out is that we wouldn't only need the money for the actual swing itself, we would need runways over the sand pits so the wheels could get over the sand instead of just not getting over the sand. My apologies on that.
So the $2,400 is for the swing itself. It does not cover installation fees. However, the part that you talked about, I don't know what you said, that is also that's part of the installation.
Councillor DuPont?
I'd like to request a motion to Parks and Recreation to submit a request for all 3 parks to the Community Preservation Committee.
Is that in the form of a motion?
Yes.
Roll call vote.
Councillor Bentmania?
Yes.
Councillor Mills?
Yes.
Councillor Buckley?
Yes.
Councillor Jones?
Yes.
Councillor Connolly?
Yes.
Councillor McKelvey?
Yes.
Councillor Kozlowski?
Yes.
Councillor DuPont?
Yes.
Councillor Stoughton?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
As Councillor President, I would like to see one of these swings in Ward 4. Meeting adjourned.